Okay, the chat should be enabled now. So if you want to say hi, introduce yourself, or say where you're from, you're welcome to do that. Welcome, everybody. Happy World Food Safety Day. And I think we'll go ahead and get started. So if we could go to the next slide. So I'm Katie Weston. I'm the program manager for the Partnership for Food Safety Education. And hello, everyone that's introducing themselves in the chats. Good to see you with us. Next slide. So our lineup for today, we have some brief housekeeping, and then I'll turn it over to Julie and Joseph, and then Mychelle, and then me, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end with all of our speakers for today. Next slide. So a little bit of housekeeping. Join the chat. If you have a question for the speakers, please put that in the Q&A box so we can see it really easily. But you're welcome to add comments during the chats as we go along. After the webinar, a survey will pop up. So we'd appreciate it if you were able to complete that at the end of the webinar. CEUs are available today from ANFP, CDR, NCHEC, and MIHA. So the certificates, we'll try to get them in the chat box, but if you don't see them there, they'll be in the follow-up email you'll receive after the webinar. You can download them at fightback.org under free resources. If you are seeking NCHEC, please complete the questionnaire no later than August 7th so you can receive those CEUs. Just a little bit about the partnership. If you're not familiar with us, we're a network of about 13,000 health and food safety educators. We have 40 partner organizations and our federal liaisons with the CDC, FDA, and USDA. And our goal is to work together to advance trusted, science-based, and consistent behavioral health messaging. And why is it important? Because every year in the US, 1 in 6 people, or about 48 million, get sick from foodborne illness, and 128,000 are hospitalized, 3,000 die from eating contaminated food. But following simple food safety steps can help prevent foodborne illness and the spread of germs. Okay, I'd like to introduce you now to Julie Wood, who is a research and training specialist with the Florida Department of Agriculture, and Joseph Smith III, who's a government business consultant, also with the Florida Department of Agriculture. Welcome, Julie and Joseph. So good to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It is such a pleasure and such an honor for us to be here today on such an epic day for all of us and the food safety community. Happy World Food Safety Day. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, just like Katie just mentioned, I'm a research and training specialist with the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services Division of Food Safety. So I've been in this position for 6 years, and it's really due to the vision of my current food safety director, Dr. Matt Curran, who had this vision to really focus on consumer food safety outreach for the state of Florida, and he brought that to life. So to give you a little bit more info, I'm also a certified public manager. I'm also a proud Partnership for Food Safety Education ambassador, and I have about 20 years of experience in communication, marketing, and professional development. Joseph Smith is here with me, and he's actually a co-author and collaborator and definitely a partner on this project. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him, Joe.
Thank you, Julie. My name is Joseph A. Smith III. I'm a business consultant in the Division of Administration within our Department of Agriculture here in Florida. I work in a subsection of administration titled Organizational and Strategic Development, acronym OSD. OSD focuses on strategic planning, change management initiatives, as well as business process excellence. My formal education is in the field of education. I'm a certified project manager, certified public manager, as well. I am certified in Lean Six Sigma Green Belt methodology. We also want to mention a co-author, a third co-author. His name is Akeem Holmes. He was part of the team. Unfortunately, he left us, but he was, a valid part of this abstract when we began it. Julie?
Yes, and Akeem is definitely watching us from afar today. So I just wanted to say hi. So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. And we're going to talk about our objectives. So during this session today, we're going to be hitting 3 big areas. The first one is how to apply a systems thinking approach for consumer food safety digital outreach campaign, and why this can help you regardless of your organization size, regardless of your resources. And then next, we're going to be talking about how to apply an effective and accessible campaign and digital communication strategy. Being effective and accessible is absolutely critical to having a successful strategy. Lastly, we'll be talking about some marketing best practices and things that you can immediately implement after today's session to apply to increase your consumer food safety digital outreach effectiveness. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joe, who's going to get us started.
Sure. As we talk about our digital outreach campaign, we do want to kind of tell you how important it is to us, not just as a state agency, but as a state. If you didn't know, Florida is the 3rd most populous state in the U.S. Our population is going to reach about 23 million this year. So when you think about food and food safety, that's a lot of residents that we are concerned about, as well as our visitors. I grew up in another state, Louisiana, and as a young man, I always wanted to visit the great state of Florida. And the reasons were, first, theme parks, attractions. Then there was the beautiful beaches, the sand, and this was in the 1980s. I wanted to come and see the beautiful orange groves, and all the different fruit and vegetable that within the state of Florida that everybody talked about. Even today, it's important to our in-state residents as well as our visitors that these commodities are protected and safe. When we talk about our economy in the state of Florida, outside of tourism, agriculture is responsible for over $1.8 billion in revenue. So it's super important, the 300 commodities of agriculture that we have in our state, that we protect them and we keep them safe.
Yes.
On the next slide, you will see our organizational chart. So that's the Department of Agriculture Consumer Services. We have 16 divisions and offices. If you glance at it, you'll see divisions such as fruit and vegetables, aquaculture, licensing, energy. We have agricultural law enforcement. We have the division of forestry. So when you think about that, when Julie came to us, OSD, last year or whenever we first got together and talked about her digital outreach efforts, we realized she was a one-person team in one division of food safety. Her resources were pretty limited. And so we talked about systems thinking. First of all, who are we and what can we do together? That means we have 16 divisions and offices, as well as our commissioner, Mr. Wilton Simpson, his staff. Maybe there's some opportunities in there for us to collaborate on resources, whether it be people or actually expertise or SME resources. So we started looking at our organization, which is 3,500 strong. Yours may be smaller, may be bigger, but the idea is for us was to look at our organization and see opportunities for strategic wins across the board. Because sometimes we seemingly have competing priorities, but this was about looking at winning together, finding goals that we all could succeed as an organization. So we looked at our external affairs and says, wait a minute, could we not use them to help with these campaigns? Our communications, our animal industry. Wait a minute, those folks are involved with food supply, animals. So what about, we have a marketing and development team, which is unique to our organization that we have a marketing and development team. But for us, that's expertise, that's SMEs and talent and advertising overall. And all of your organizations, I would assume at some point have some sort of technology services, some IT services, which was a great help to us in this campaign as well. Sheila?
Okay, so just like Joe mentioned, again, I started out as one person, right? And just being fully transparent, 50% of my role is dedicated to consumer food safety outreach, education. And then the other 50% is dedicated to professional development and growth of our team members here within the Division of Food Safety. And so again, time was definitely a constraint, right? But through this process, we realized, hey, all of these other things are already in place that have a very strong viewership, that these are folks that we can easily collaborate with inside our organization. We'll talk a little bit later. If you don't have these resources, you can definitely still apply this approach, even if, regardless of your organization size, regardless of what your resources are. And we'll talk a little bit later about how to do this. So we looked at our external affairs and Office of Communications, and they're responsible for the department's Twitter page as well as its Facebook page. And so we definitely crafted and worked with them to send out some messaging. Our division of animal industry has a really wonderful monthly newsletter we were able to collaborate with on and send in an article as well as some things that they could embed in directly to increase viewer engagement. Our division of consumer services, they have a very successful newsletter that goes out each and every month. It has a very, very strong followership. And so we're very grateful to be able to partner with them. Division of Food Safety, that's this person right here. Also, we have a really, really wonderful team, and we'll talk about how more people within our division also played such a critical role within this project. Marketing and development, our division of marketing and development, just like Joseph mentioned, is wonderful. They are responsible for our Fresh from Florida brand and are definitely the face from that. We also were very grateful to have them lend their editing and artistic support and creating some graphic design help so that we could create flyers, which are now on our website. We'll be talking about that in more detail in here in a moment, as well as creating some PSA videos. They have a wonderful, wonderful videography team. And so we're able to collaborate with them to create these wonderful food safety videos because we already had our Fresh from Florida brand, which teaches people, hey, here's some Fresh from Florida ingredients. Here's some really amazing recipes and ways that you can utilize this food to make it delicious and scrumptious. But then also, how do you make this in a really a safe way, right? And so we were able to partner together with them and Chef Justin. And so he is in many of our videos. Division of Administration is this person right here, Mr. Joseph Smith and Mr. Akeem Holmes, when he was partnering together with us. Our Agricultural Technology Services is essentially our IT team for the agency. And oh my goodness, I learned so much from them. Incredibly grateful for them and their expertise. So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide, and we'll talk about this campaign in general. So the food safety outreach campaign that we're focusing on during our time together today is September. So I've already seen so many of you typing in the chat, what happens in September? If y'all could just type that in the chat. Okay. So, yes, Food Safety Month. Thank you so much. So yes, September is National Food Safety Education Month. Happens each and every year. We get to celebrate that. And so we said, you know what? Let's do a campaign that lasts the entire month. All right, well, what makes sense? Well, we have 4 weeks, right? So why not the core 4? And then there was a little bit of a half week left over. And so we know how critical safe hand washing practices are when it comes to food safety. So we said, well, the rest of this time we're going to devote to proper hand washing technique, right? So we did this by creating and establishing a Division of Food Safety YouTube channel, and it hosts all of our videos. They range anywhere from 30 seconds all the way up to 3 minutes and about 30 seconds. And again, we work together with our marketing team on these. We also reached out to our Office of Communications and External Affairs, who is responsible for our Twitter and Facebook accounts. And we drafted language and just asked them, hey, would you like to collaborate? Would you mind posting these posts every week for the month of September? And we're really grateful for their support. And then on top of that, we also reached out to our Division of Marketing, who again had a very strong viewership for our Fresh from Florida brand, for their Facebook page, as well as our Instagram page. And what was really exciting about this is that every channel, every social media channel listed here, we marketed according to that platform, right? So we used the strength of each individual platform to really engage our customers and our external users. On Instagram, we have really short videos. One of the lessons learned that we've learned through this whole journey for us was our engagement and our viewership definitely increases if you can keep your video no longer than 30 seconds, especially on Instagram. So we found that to be true, and we hope that information is helpful for you on your journey as well. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. We're going to talk about our strategy. So having a very successful and a very strong digital marketing strategy is absolutely critical to having an effective food safety campaign. And so initially, when I first came on, we had no website for consumer food safety education. So that we created a website, right? And we made sure that it looks the same, functions the same, acts the same. It's accessible, whether you're logging in from a desktop, tablet, cell phone, what have you. Everything functions consistently across the board. Very important. Content marketing. Again, we focused on one of the core four each and every week, right? And then followed up that little half week with hand washing. And we did have very strong content marketing base. So pulled out and crafted a very large marketing and communication plan. And how we did that is we focused on each communication channel, crafted content specific to that channel. One of the things that really helped us be successful here was keeping our sentences very concise, keeping word count down. We really tried not to go over 2 syllables whenever we could in most instances. And so I hope that that is really helpful and meaningful for you as you progress through your journey as well. Social media, I will be the first one to admit, when we thought of a digital marketing strategy, the first thing I thought of was, okay, website, social media. My brain kind of filtered out everything else. And that actually was something that Joseph and Akeem were great at bringing up as a focus point for me and a learning point for me is, hey, you cannot forget about the importance of email marketing, even in today's times. And Joseph will be covering the effectiveness of this campaign and what that looked like for our social media and website versus email marketing campaign. So definitely keep that in the back of your mind. But another thing that Joseph and Akeem brought up was, when we think of our digital strategy, we think of our marketing strategy, a lot of times we're so externally focused, we forget about our own people. Don't forget about your own people. Make sure you bring them in. We have inspectors, retail inspectors, manufactured food inspectors, dairy inspectors who go out all throughout the state, and they're our first line of defense. They have great working relationships with our industry partners, and we are so grateful for that. And so we communicated with them early on before the campaign rolled out and said, hey, this campaign is happening. Here's the reason why. This is why it's important. And you know what? Don't just keep this information to yourself. Please share it with your family. Please share it with your friends, right? We want everyone to be healthy. And then past that, when you go out and do these inspections and you're collaborating and talking to our industry partners, please share these free resources with them. We have so many free resources that would empower and help them that are just there. All they have to do is just download and print them, right? So that's a way that we can also support our industry partners is through these free resources. And also, there's something else called search engine optimization, or SEO. I will also admit, when we started this, I have no idea what that meant. And so if you feel that way, just know that is completely normal and you're in the majority. So search engine optimization is basically, hey, I created this website. When I Google certain things, our website never comes up. Why is that? Well, we were buried basically on page 2074 of Google, right? When you Google certain food safety items, but now if you Google fall food safety topics, we should come up on page 1. And it's like that for several other food safety topics. But I can tell you a lesson learned through this is website is something you don't just create and it just lives there. It's something you have to go back and constantly work at. It's something you constantly have to maintain. If you want to be on that first page, if you want to strive for that, or even the first 5 pages, it's that work is really, really critical. So campaign marketing overall was very comprehensive. The key, I think, to our success was, again, not copying and pasting any content, making sure every time we interacted with external parties that they were getting something new, they were getting something fresh, they were hearing something different they hadn't heard, they were following us on multiple different platforms, it wasn't the same. And so each time we had the ability to not only engage them, right, but to drop another nugget of knowledge and education on them as well. So on the next slide, Joseph's going to be talking about our effectiveness for this campaign.
Sure. So we hear us talking about this September month-long campaign, right? 1 month. So we want to talk about what the things Julie talked about earlier as far as email. That's 72%, and the 0.36%, that was from my email contribution from our consumer services and our animal industry. And this was infrastructure they had in place. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel. We just capitalized on resources that were available. The right side, you see the 21% and the 6%. That is communications that came from our communications team and our marketing team. Those were social media aspects of the campaign that people will reach through those components. That 1%, back to that baseline, that's Julie Wood. So we started with this 1%, but we had all this collaboration throughout our system, through our organization, that led to us. On the next slide, you'll see the actually raw numbers that we came up with for the campaign. So when you look at the social media, the website, we counted over 89,000 clicks. The email distribution, that was to our consumer services and our animal industry. And we also realized that it's not just spam mail. We've verified that it's active email directories, people who want these emails that are going to read them. We reached over 234,000 people. Then we talked about indirect effect. The indirect effect is what it is. If you tell somebody, they're going to tell someone else. Julie talked about the inspectors. When they tell someone, the expectation is they're automatically going to tell someone else. When they go home and tell loved ones, this is what I did today, this is what I heard today. If a parent, if an employee goes home and tells the loved one, tell the kids, it's going to spread. So at a lowball estimate, we estimated over 840,000 people were reached through indirect effect, through that communication. So when we added all those numbers for this 1 month campaign, the next slide is going to show you, we believe we reached over 1.1 million people in a month on this digital outreach campaign for food safety. Yeah. And we thought, wow, that's great. But then we talked about next steps. Next slide. We talk about what do we do with that, right? It can't be the end. Systems thinking is about continuous improvement. First of all, are they clicking on sites? Which ones are they? Which ones are they not? So that's something that we're going to look at. What can we improve? Also, are they getting something from those clicks or from those emails? So we put in surveys to our outreach campaigns to ask 3 questions, 3 simple questions. Was it easy to find? The third question was, anything you saw or read, will it potentially change your behavior when it comes to food safety? So we realized that we don't just want to throw stuff out like plaster it on the wall. We want to know that it's making a difference to our food safety community. And also we want to look for opportunities to dig deeper into the data. How long are people staying on the sites? So there's lots of opportunities. What about demographics? Are we missing something? The sites that people are clicking on, the ads, or we just missing certain demographics. So these are a lot of things that we're going to continue to look at as we move forward. Sheila?
So some other things that can help you, again, regardless of your resources or your organization size, that you can take from this session is something else that you could do if you have a website, but maybe you don't have flyers yet, right? Or you don't have the time to create flyers, no problem. Here's a step you can do. You can create additional resources and then have some really meaningful food safety content under those additional resources. If you have the ability to then look at data analytics and see, hey, what are people clicking on? What are they hungry for? What's getting the majority of the clicks here? What's content that I'm not currently providing that people are wanting to click on? That can easily tell you content that you can create versus content that maybe you thought would be nice to create, but maybe that people aren't even interested in, right? So then you can use those resources in a really appropriate way for you and your organization. Another really quick and easy way here is if we think about outside of our organization, maybe you know another like-minded food safety organization out there. Maybe they have a strong newsletter that goes out quarterly. Maybe they have something that you can collaborate with on their website. Maybe they have calls with industry partners. Thinking of these other like-minded industries or organizations is really, really critical. So an example of this is maybe you know of an organization that gives out free food to people who are in need. A really easy way that we could continuously improve and also work with external partners is saying, hey, I have a flyer here that talks about the core 4, it talks about some food safety tips. So that way people who receive your food aren't just receiving it, but they also learn how to eat it and cook it in a really safe way to prevent foodborne illness. Would you be interested in just sharing that flyer each time you pass out food? Most of the time, people are going to say yes to that, right? Like it's a very easy ask. You're providing all the resources. And so there are things like that that you can also do and that we're consciously thinking of for our next steps through this journey to continuously improve. Joseph?
Yeah, and a few more points for improvement. We also want to say that we hopefully created a template that we can use in other parts of our department, that it can be something that we can have strategic wins for multiple divisions and offices by combining those resources at little to no cost across the organization, as well as sharing our story outside of the organization. As in the day, it's an opportunity for us to share the story, maybe help to someone else. And a big outcome, we really hope one day we can look at our health statistics statewide and see that there are less food safety incidents because of, in part, to our digital outreach campaigns. Thank you.
So in the next slide, we've talked about a lot during this time. We've talked about how to apply a systems thinking approach and why that's critical when it comes to consumer food safety digital outreach campaign. We've also talked about how to make it effective, how to make it accessible, some tools that you can do there to help your communication strategy. And then lastly, we touched on marketing best practices, again, using that cross communication mix with all of those different channels to increase your effectiveness. So we want to go ahead and just say thank you so much. Thank you to the partnership for having us here. We're so incredibly grateful and humbled to be here. If you want to check out our website, feel free to just take a screenshot of this or click on that QR code and check it out. We'd love to have your feedback. And then our information is there as well. If you'd like to reach out, we're absolutely a resource for you. Katie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Julie and Joe. And if you didn't catch it, after the presentations today, we'll have a Q&A with all the speakers. So you can go ahead and add any questions you have now into the Q&A box, and we'll answer those at the end. So I think next up, we have a quick poll for you. How often do you make videos about food safety? All the time / often? Sometimes, rarely, or never. And I'm going to give just a minute or two for you to answer that poll. How often do you make videos about food safety? Maybe 30 more seconds to get your answer in. Okay, last few seconds. Get it in quickly if you haven't. All right, and I'm going to end the poll now. So we had 1% of you make videos all the time or often, 12% make them sometimes, 37% rarely, and 50% never. So if you've never made a video or rarely made a video, you're about to learn all the tips and tricks for how to make a food safety video. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Mychelle Garrigan. She is a digital marketing consultant with Firelink Digital Marketing. Hi, Mychelle.
Hi, thanks, Katie. Well, a little bit about me. I have a business where I help primarily small businesses and a lot of nonprofits with website design, different types of digital marketing, and a lot of video. And I also actually have a master's degree in social welfare, which is why I love working with nonprofits. And one of the things that I deal with often is, and I actually want to echo back what our previous presenter, Julie, said, which was excellent about, yes, your website is never done. If you want your website to show up in search, you need to keep working on it. And a great way to do that is to add video. There's tons of statistics out there that show how adding images, and even more so than images, video, will actually increase the amount of impressions and conversions that you will get both on your website and on your social media. What I find, though, working with my clients is, and I'll go back to the poll where you just had basically, I can do math in my head. So basically 87% of the people said they either rarely or never do video. What I find is my clients will say, you know, we can't afford to hire like a videographer, you know, that costs thousands of dollars, or we just, you know, we don't know how to do it. Or the big one is we don't want to appear on video because people hate showing up on video. So I'm here to talk about how, honestly, you don't need a ton of money to do video. You can do awesome video with very minimal or inexpensive equipment. And it doesn't really matter if you have amazing production values of, you know, the videographer that you hire for thousands of dollars. In fact, studies have found that people who watch videos they'll react better to ones that are more, I don't want to say low production, but like ones where it's clear like they were made by the people and not with like a big budget, because those are more authentic and they're more real to people. So you have to keep that in mind when you're thinking, oh, we just can't do video because it's not going to look amazing. So next slide. So one of the first things I tell people if you are going to start doing video is the best way to save money and also time, because time is money, is to plan out what you're going to do, because this is going to make it much, much easier for you. So there's things you want to figure out in your plan is who your audience is, what are your objectives, your budget, what equipment and software you're going to use, who's going to do what, and then putting together a content calendar, which I'm going to go through all those things in the next couple slides. So next slide. So first, target audience. Who are you trying to reach with this video? You know, what are the characteristics of them? Are you trying to reach, for example, middle school children, or are you trying to reach busy working moms, or are you trying to reach health educators who work for local government? You know, kind of narrow down who those people are and what's important to them, because that's going to inform how you create the video. And it may be that you have different audiences for different versions of your message, and that's fine, because you can actually take those and make separate videos, but do them all kind of at the same time. So again, that saves you time and money, because you're doing everything at once, but you're tailoring it a little bit to each of those audiences. The next big part is, where do these, once you figure out who these people are, where do they live on the internet? And when I say live, I mean, you know, where do they tend to go for their information? For example, professionals tend to really like LinkedIn. If you're going for younger people, you're probably going to hit up like TikTok or Instagram. Once you figure that out, and again, it may be different for different audiences if you're doing more than one, what are the specific video specifications for those platforms? Every platform has different specifications. They're easy to find if you go to the different platforms, or again, you can certainly email me after this if you can't find them. But for example, you know, TikTok video tends to be shot in a portrait mode. If you're shooting for, you said your website is going to be much likely more landscape mode. You want to know those things, because what happens to me as a website designer, this happens a lot. I'll get video from people who specifically shot it for the website, and it's all in portrait instead of landscape, and it doesn't look great. So again, knowing like where you're going to do it is important, because you want to make sure you shoot to those specifications. And like I said, if you're having multiple audiences, you may be doing like a couple of videos portrait, a couple doing landscape. Some might be, you know, 60 seconds, some might be a minute and a half, because again, every not only in terms of specifications, but also in terms of length of video is different for every platform. Next slide. I should say for the past 7 years, if you've ever watched a webinar from Fight Back, I've actually been the one like moving the slides. So it's so hard to not go and like move the slides and realize someone else is moving them for me. Anyway, so objectives and goals of the video. When it's important that you have a clear set of goals, like what do you want this video to do? Because again, when you're thinking about social media and even website, you don't want to make long form videos unless it's like something, you know, more specific, like say you're making a documentary or whatnot. But if it's specifically for social media, most platforms have a short amount of time that you can express your thoughts. And also just, you know, knowing how people are today, particularly as you get younger audiences, you know, attention span's not there. So you really want to think about, what is it I need to say? What does I need to get across? And can I do it in the 60 to 90 to 120 seconds or whatever I have? And then you kind of want to like outline your message with that time frame in mind. Next slide. So the next part, and this is important, is, you know, what is your budget? And it may be your budget is zero, which is good to know. But you may, you know, have a little bit of money set aside for this, or perhaps you have a grant for it. So from there, you want to figure out what can you afford as far as video editing software, special equipment that you might need. And then when I say video editor, I mean an actual person, you know, who is going to be actually editing the video. It may be, you know, someone on your team, it may be a volunteer, or, you know, it may be somewhere where you actually go and hire somebody, whether maybe it's someone local, or you find somebody on Fiverr or Upwork or one of those types of sites. Next slide. So as far as equipment and software, it's amazing how well you can shoot video with a smartphone. I grew up back when, if you wanted to shoot video, you had to get like a huge like video camera, and they were clunky. And things came out on like film reels, which kind of dates me a lot. But you can do pretty much everything with a smartphone, but you may find that you need extra equipment. Microphones, depending on where you're shooting, can really improve sound quality. Lighting also, it's amazing how lighting can change the quality of a video. Tripods are important because you don't want your video to do like this and kind of make people seasick. Depending again on what you're doing or what you're filming, you might want a photo backdrop. And then again, the video editing software. So next. And then you want to talk about, who is going to be doing what. And if you're a team of one, obviously you're probably going to be doing everything, or maybe you're going to be hiring somebody to help you with certain parts. But you do want to figure out, who's doing the video, who's writing the script, who's going to actually be adding graphics or editing the video or anything like that, or adding captions. And then who's going to be actually creating the content calendar and posting to social media and the website. Next slide. And then a content calendar, can be as simple as, just an outline that you write out, or, you can use like a really complex like Google Sheet or Excel sheet. But the specifics of a content calendar is basically where are you going to post, which social media platforms or your website. When are you going to post? So like days of the week, specific days, for example, Food Safety Day or Food Safety Month in September. And then how are you going to repurpose the video? And this is why, again, I really urge people to use video, because video is so great because you can use it again and again in so many different ways. So obviously you can post it on social media, you can post it on your website, but then depending on the length of the video, you could cut little pieces of the video. You could add those then to social media posts. You could add them to blogs. Depending on like what you do as far as getting your word out, like maybe you do tabling displays at like health fairs or trade shows, you can include it in your email newsletter. And if you have a Google Business Profile, you can also post it there. And those are only just a couple ideas of ways you can repurpose video. So one way to make video much more economical for you is, not just using it for the first purpose that comes up to mind, but then sitting down, and maybe brainstorming with your team. What are other ways we can use this? Because you'd be surprised at how many ways you can actually reuse a video. Next slide. So the next step is you want to create your content. And I always recommend creating a storyboard. This doesn't have to be difficult. It literally could be, I'm a pencil and paper kind of gal. So I'll have a notebook and I will just draw out on a page, like what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say, because then when you're going to actually doing the shoot, you can do it much faster because you're not kind of fumbling around and trying to figure out what is it that we want to do. The other thing you want to do is have a script. That's very important, and you want to practice it. However, when I say practice it, I don't mean that you need to memorize it. I myself, I never memorize. I do webinars and presentations all the time. I never ever memorize them because that actually kind of makes me more nervous, but I definitely do practice them. I will sit down and figure out what am I going to say for each slide, because again, when it comes time for you to do the video, you're prepared, you're ready, you're much less likely to have to keep redoing takes because you're ready to go. And then once you've done all that, you do want to sit down and look at it. And if you have a team, have everybody kind of look at it, make sure that what you're presenting fits with your organization's voice and their vision, and that you feel like it's going to resonate with your audience. Definitely always work with the idea of you want to reach the audience that you're like where they're at, and not so much like where you're at. Oftentimes I'll see places that they'll do video or even imaging or writing where they're kind of writing up at this level and they're trying to reach an audience down at this level. So always keep your audience in mind. Like, how are they going to take this message? And it may be, again, like I said earlier, you might have to have different versions of it for different audiences. Next slide. So the next couple slides, I'm going to have a bunch of links. These are from Amazon. I am not an affiliate. I do not make any money from these links. I just get asked about this a lot. So I do have a bunch of links for equipment that I send out to people. These are kind of more a general guide. You may look at these and go, oh, okay, this is what I want. Or you might, look at it and look at different, pieces of equipment to kind of give you an idea of what's out there. The other thing I'd say is, depending on your budget, take a look at these, and then, check out places like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, or, even like garage sales, because you can find a lot of this equipment usually for a lot cheaper, used, and generally probably in pretty good condition. So as far as cameras, as I said, I mean, you can totally shoot everything in your smartphone. Some people do prefer to use an actual camera instead. So digital cameras can range pretty widely in price. You can get pretty good video for like cheap. And so like when you see these links here, a lot of these cameras are listed as like student camera. And that kind of gives you the idea, maybe it's kind of junky, but it's more like they're like beginner cameras. And they kind of range between $50 to $60, $75. But these things are great. I've used them. They do a really great job, probably for most people. They'll do just as good a job as your phone. And for the most part, unless you're making some huge movie production, you don't need the $800 digital camera. Like the $50 to $60 one is probably great. Next slide. Another thing I highly recommend this is getting a lav mic. So that's the type of mic that like clips, underneath. They're little. What I would suggest doing is, before you shoot your video, determine like what you're using to shoot, whether it's a camera or your phone. Take a little bit of video in the area where you're actually going to be, and then play it back. A lot of times you'll be in a room where you think, oh, it's completely quiet, there's no background noise, and then you listen to the video later, and like you'd be amazed like how loud things like ceiling fans, like I have one up here, or I have an air cleaner beneath me, like these things make a ton of noise, and they get picked up like way louder on video than you would think. So it's definitely a great idea to just take a little bit of test video, and then if you do notice that noise, get a lav mic. And again, lav mics super cheap. You can get them again like $10 to $20. You don't have to spend a ton of money on an amazing lav mic. If you're doing the video, like for example, like if you're using like Zoom and you're using like your webinar, most webcams have pretty good mics, but you can also buy they're like podcasting mics. Those actually work really well too. Next slide. I keep trying to move the slides. Another thing I would highly recommend is a tripod. You really want to eliminate that shaky camera syndrome, because that will definitely like turn people off from your video. Tripods, again, super cheap. You can find like a tabletop tripod between like $10 to $20. They're very versatile. Most tripods, you can attach a camera, you can attach a phone to it. My tripod, I think I paid $20 for it, and I use it constantly, and it's a great investment. And again, you can definitely find tripods, on Facebook Marketplace and other places used for much cheaper. Next slide. Another thing I would again recommend, so when you're doing that video test for the sound, also look at the lighting, because again, you could be in a room where you think the lighting looks fine, it looks good to me, and then you watch the video back and it's like, wow, that looks like, really muted, or it looks a lot darker. It's funny how like lighting can be different, in real life and then on video. And generally when you look at like large scale productions, one of the big differences is usually they have really, really good professional lighting. So again, I recommend, if you see that the lighting looks bad, definitely it's worth it to invest in a lighting kit. Most lighting kits, you can get like the small tripod kind for $20 to $30. If you want to go like the professional stand-up kind that like photographers use, kits run anywhere from like $90 to like $150. Again, you can definitely find them used pretty easily, or you can also rent them. A lot of places will rent them out. Depending on how much video you do, you might find like it's cheaper, in the end for you to buy, or maybe you have a grant where you can pay for them. Or, definitely contact, people in your area, like maybe photographers who, if, they are moved by your cause, they might, be willing to let you borrow their kits. Next slide. And then a couple other items, it kind of depends on what you're doing. A photography light box is basically like a square kind of box with like, it's white on all sides, and it's usually used for shooting like products. But for example, if you were doing like recipes and food, having a light box might be a great thing to have to like actually shoot like the finished meal. Again, it's not necessary, it's just kind of a nice touch. And you can get Lightbox for, I don't know, say like $20 to $30. And then I'm going to skip to the last one there. The overhead camera mount, if you do any type of cooking videos where, you know, you're looking overhead, where somebody's cooking video on a stove or cooking food on a stove, that I would say is definitely a must. And again, they're not expensive at all. And you can usually find them used pretty often. And then the middle one, this is a nice to have, a compact teleprompter. Basically, it's a teleprompter and it fits on the top of like your laptop. Or you can also use it like on a tripod if you're like doing like an outdoor shoot. I love my teleprompter. I think it was, I want to say it was probably about $150. So it's probably like the most expensive thing. But if you're going to do a lot of video, and especially if you people doing the video with you who are nervous and they're not used to doing a video, teleprompters are amazing. They have the script, they help people see what to say. And especially if you're like me, I can never stick on subject. So if I didn't have my teleprompter, you know, I would start out a video talking about like website design and end up talking about, you know, like cats or whatever. So my teleprompter, it helps me stay on track. It helps me produce the video quickly. And again, one thing I forgot to include it on the slide, but another great teleprompter option is actually an app. You do have to pay for it, but it's not that expensive. And you can find it on the Apple and the Google Play Store. It's called Big View. So it's all one word, BIGVU. It's a great product. I've used it. And certainly if you go into either of the app stores, you'll see tons of other like teleprompter software. I can only speak to Big View because I've used it. It works the same way. The teleprompter text comes up on the phone while you're filming. And I'm trying to remember how much it costs, but I think it's around like $10 a month or something like that. So it's definitely very economical. Next slide. So a big one then is software. You know, you shot your video, how are you going to edit? The amazing thing is you can probably do most things that you need to do with free software. Some of these are specific to platform. For example, Apple iMovie will only work like on an iPhone or a Mac. Some of these, again, like YouTube Studio is only with YouTube. But these are all great products. I've actually used all of these. And I'd say the majority of people doing, you know, simple videos for social media on their website, this will do everything that you need. Now, if you're somebody who needs a little bit more, you need like special effects. Next slide. These are some paid software. And again, these are ones that I have worked with that I think the pricing is pretty reasonable. The one, I'd say the big heavy on these is Adobe Premiere Pro. That is generally pretty expensive because you have to pay for it per month. However, if you are a student, a teacher, or a school, you can actually get a discounted subscription to it. And if you're only going to be using it for a short time, you can also do, there's always a free 30-day trial. A lot of these too, always ask for software. The companies won't always mention it on the website, but they usually do have like a nonprofit discount. Or sometimes they don't, but they'll just give it to you if you ask. And then Canva Pro, you can actually get an entirely free Canva Pro subscription if you're a 501c3 nonprofit. And Canva Pro for video is actually really good. But again, like all of these are great options. I think the one on this I probably use the most is Filmora, and I've used Canva and Clipchamp. And obviously I've used Premiere, but I think that's kind of out of most people's budget. And also most of the things Premiere do are so like, it's not easy to learn, and it's really extensive to like what most people need. Next slide. So another thing that's important, depending on what your video is going to be about, you might need to add in what we call B-roll. And that's basically just video that's running in the background. You might have like captions or text coming up during it, or maybe you have like a voiceover. So you can actually film your own B-roll. But if you kind of press for time, there are stock photo sites that do have some amount of free B-roll that you can download. Obviously, they don't have a great selection, so you may not really find what you need. And then they do also sell B-roll video, and usually that video is, I would say, anywhere from $10 to $50 or so for the license for it. And then I will give a shout out to the partnership. If you have not checked out the saferecipeguide.org website, they have a huge library of videos and images that you can use for B-roll that are all food safety focused, and it's all 100% free. So if you haven't checked it out, I definitely would urge you to. It's a really, really great resource. Next slide. And then one thing I will always urge you is always remember accessibility when you're creating videos. Make sure that you add captions and include transcripts. Most of the software that I mentioned will do that for you. You can also do captioning for free on YouTube. The importance of captions is not just for accessibility. It's also that a large percentage of people who watch videos on social media or website watch it with the sound off. You know, maybe they're on public transit, or they're, you know, at work, or they're in a meeting. But a huge number of people will always watch their videos without the sound, but they'll read the captions. So you want to make sure your video has captions in it, because that way you'll capture, you know, every potential audience who could like watch your video. Next slide. So I know this is kind of a high level view of how to do video on the cheap, but absolutely feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions, or if you want some equipment recommendations. Happy to do that.
Thank you so much, Mychelle. Okay, so I know we're coming close to the end of the webinar here. It's getting close to our end time at 2:10, but I have some quick information for you on building an effective food safety campaign. And I'm Katie Weston with the Partnership for Food Safety Education, by the way. So one of the ultimate, or I would say the ultimate goal of all these food safety campaigns is to influence behavior so people practice food safety steps at home. And at the partnership, we've learned a lot about this. In May 2021, we commissioned with Iowa State University a survey to understand how the average consumer perceives issues around food safety practices and what motivates them to make decisions that could alter their behavior. And what we found is that people want to be seen as protectors of their family and friends, that statistics and stories and relatable case studies matter, especially if they're tied to something personal or to something that happened locally. And that family and healthcare organizations and research institutions are influential. So when you're putting together these campaigns with all the wonderful information we got from Mychelle and Julie and Joseph, these are things to keep in mind as you think about what you're going to talk about. Also, could we go back? In 2022, we did at the partnership a survey of 570 health and food safety educators. Some of you might have taken part in that. And we learned that they felt the most influential way to change behavior is through direct person-to-person contact, but that print materials in particular are an important method of reinforcement after you're talking to people about food safety. So next slide. Some other things we've learned in terms of social media, some best practices that we've learned it's important to know the best times to post for your audience. So you might experiment around and see when people are most likely to engage with your post or to share them. And if you're using a platform like Instagram or Facebook, you can go to their meta analytics and see it actually tracks that data for you and tells you when your audience is most engaged. Also, make use of the relevant hashtags. So there's industry-specific hashtags like hashtag food safety and hashtag food poisoning that you can use to connect with experts in the food safety field. Or you can use general audience hashtags like hashtag kids health, hashtag recipe share if you want to capture that audience, or you can use a combination of both. Also, you want to make sure that you're working on building engagement and relationships with people on the social media platform. So if you worked with an expert on a program, you would want to tag that person or that organization that you worked with. You want to make sure you're replying to comments and questions on your post and thanking people that share those posts. You also want to make sure you're using compelling images or videos. Now we learned from Mychelle how to create really compelling videos. And we've learned that photos of people are especially compelling, more so than things like cartoons. People like to see photos of other people. And then you want to keep your text very simple and basic, aim for about an 8th grade level for a general audience. This is also helpful for those auto translators that are available on some platforms like YouTube. If you're using very simple, straightforward language, it's easier for those auto translators to translate that. Next slide. So a little bit about the platforms. This is all data from the Pew Research Center. It was a survey they conducted in 2021. And the way this was worded is, do you ever use that platform? So please note, this doesn't indicate how frequently people use these platforms, but if they've ever used them. So YouTube was number one. 81% of Americans are using YouTube. Facebook, 69% of Americans. Instagram, 40% of Americans. And I won't read all of them. And then the number next to that was the age group that had the highest percentage of users on that platform. So on YouTube, 95% of 18 to 29-year-olds were using YouTube. On Facebook, 77% of 30 to 49-year-olds were using that platform. And then some other data that's not on this slide that I thought was interesting but wanted to share is that for all ages, except for adults over 65, YouTube was the platform with the highest percentage of users. For adults over 65, it was Facebook. So it's also an interesting thing to note. YouTube is very popular for almost all age ranges. Next slide. Oh, so we have another poll for you. Do you currently evaluate your programming? And I'm gonna give you a couple seconds or a couple minutes to fill that out. Should be launching now. Do you currently evaluate your programming? Yes, all the time. Yes, sometimes. Yes, but rarely. No, never, and you're not sure, or maybe if you don't do programming, you can click not sure. So I'll give you another minute to let everybody get their answers in. Do you currently evaluate your programming? About 20 more seconds. So if you haven't gotten your answer in, please do that now. Okay, and I'm going to end the poll now. So I see 17% evaluate their programming all the time, 29% sometimes, 13% rarely, 14% never, and 27% are not sure. So we have some, about, if I'm doing my math correctly, a little under 50% that do it all the time or sometimes, and 27% that aren't sure or maybe don't have programming to evaluate. Next slide. So if you aren't already incorporating evaluation in your programming or your campaigns, and it's something that you're interested in doing, the partnership along with FDA has put together a toolbox and guide for evaluating programming. So it walks you how to build your programming or campaign with evaluation from the very beginning. It includes all kinds of information like how to identify your target audience, how to conduct a needs assessment, how to create a logic model, and the best practices for collecting and evaluating your data. So if you haven't checked that out, you can find it on our website, fightback.org. Next slide. So Mychelle gave us a wonderful demonstration of how to create your own video. But if you're not up to that, or if you just want to see what's already out there, you can utilize some of the videos that we've already made at the partnership. We have a channel on YouTube that is specifically food safety information for a general audience. and it has all kinds of videos. There's a don't wash your chicken video that shows why you shouldn't wash your chicken. We have recipes with food safety steps in them, both in English and Spanish. And since summer is almost here, we have a playlist of grilling food safety videos that you might want to check out. Next slide. If you're looking for resources to add to your campaigns for younger audiences, you can check out fightback.org/kidsfoodsafety. We also have safe recipes for kids there. So again, those are recipes with food safety steps in them. We have coloring pages and activity sheets. And we have the safe recipe activity for middle school, which would, if you're doing some type of campaign with recipes, you could incorporate building safe recipes into that campaign. So I recommend that. Next slide. There are many, many more resources on fightback.org, but just a couple I want to call out really fast. We have a Mythbusters campaign. That myth you see on the slide, I know it's a little small, but it's related to grilling. So again, summer's coming up if you want a grilling Mythbuster. But we also have myths on cleaning and sanitizing, babies and toddlers, meat and poultry, food delivery, and more. If you're planning to do a campaign related to baking, we have some social media and infographics on flour safety that you can use. And as food delivery is continuing to increase, and with the hot summer months, we don't want people leaving those food delivery items out in the sun. You might want to take a look at the Prep Yourself campaign, which has print materials, digital ads, and social media content on how to keep food safe that's been delivered. Next slide. So we have, I'd say we'll spend maybe 5 minutes on the Q&A. So if you would go ahead and get your questions into the Q&A box if you have any, and we will get started. If you have questions for me, if you have questions for Mychelle, if you have questions for Julie and Joseph, please add those to the Q&A box now. And Mychelle and Julie and Joseph, if you'd come back on camera for us. I see one already in the Q&A box, and I have a couple others I got in the chat. I think this is for Julie and Joseph. How can we find the videos on the different social channels? I think they're talking about the videos you made.
Okay, sure. So we have so many videos. If you happen to scan our website, the QR code from our website, feel free to check out our website. You can definitely see the volume of our videos there and all of the videos that we provide. There should also be a link to our YouTube channel as well. And then regarding like what video did we push out to the different links, we partnered with our Fresh from Florida brand. So they are the Fresh from Florida team, our marketing team, they pushed out the information on their Instagram feed. So feel free to like look back at that, as well as the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services on the other links.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Mychelle, a question for you. If you aren't able to buy some type of lighting kit, is there anything else you can do to improve the lighting in a video?
I mean, you can just use like regular lighting. Like if you have a couple of lamps in your house, borrow some lamps, from your friends, or, have employees, if you're doing it at work, have them bring in extra lamps. It's more just the idea of getting more of the light in the room. So it doesn't have to be, the big fancy professional kit. But I would also say, ask around if you have people at work who maybe they have a friend or a family member who's a photographer professional. They might let you borrow it if they know it's for a nonprofit. I've done that before a couple times, and I've been able to like borrow like professional kits as long as you don't break it or anything. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be the photographer's kit. It could just be, floor lamps from your house.
Thanks, Mychelle. So I see a question here about requirements for using materials from the partnership. Just, they have the logo on it, just indicate that the materials came from the partnership and you're welcome to use them. Julie and Joseph, do you have any requirements if someone uses the videos or materials from your campaign?
That's a great question. And that's quite frankly a question we haven't had before. I'd say we definitely have all those videos on our YouTube website that are available. If you want to link to them, that's definitely something that you could do, as well as if you want to link to our website, if that's more convenient, just so you have like the breadth of resources that are available to you. You'd even be able to have like a higher impact that way. It's completely up to you.
Yeah, I would say we're a public agency, so whatever,
Yes.
whatever we have out there, share them. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So this next question could be for anybody. I'm not tech savvy and I'd like to do more social media and videos, but I'm nervous. Any advice for getting started? So maybe Mychelle can answer first and then Julie and Joseph.
I would say just get started. It's what I've found with my clients is they put so many objections up about just doing it. And I can say, you know, like I used to be the person in college who, like, if I had a class on the syllabus where I had to talk in front of a group, I immediately dropped it. And now, you know, I present at conferences. And how I did it was I just did it. So like just start doing it, just experiment with it. You know, the first few, if you make a video and you don't like it, you're not obligated to post it. But like doing it a couple times, seeing how you look, seeing, you know, how it works out. You know, those can kind of help you. And then, you know, working with the team also helps. And I would say, you know, even not being tech savvy, like something like Canva, it's so easy to do like basic, you know, video and even photo edits on there. And there are tons of courses on YouTube. It's, you know, I'd say my biggest advice is don't fear it, just get started. Like even at the beginning, before we started here, you know, we were talking about being nervous and I'm like, you're just talking to friends. Just think of it that way.
Definitely. That helps me. I was nervous, Mychelle. Julie and Joseph.
Okay, so I love that. Just get in it, start somewhere, start small, start big, just start somewhere, just start, right? Just to echo what Mychelle said. On top of that, I completely understand the apprehension. Even in a very large public agency, my resources are very limited. And so one of the misconceptions we can kind of mentally create for ourselves is like, hey, I need to do everything from scratch, right? I need to create my own newsletter, or I need to create my own social media channel or page for like this one specific thing, where if you don't have a lot of resources, if you don't have a lot of time and you don't have those, you don't have that support, it doesn't have to be you. It doesn't have to be you. You just have to look around and say, hey, who can I collaborate with? Who would be open to collaborate with me? Who is someone that I can mentor, or who's someone that I can learn from, right? Maybe we can have back-to-back like peer-to-peer mentoring. And so you can definitely learn through that process as well. I have humbly come to so many subject matter experts and all of these different offices, different divisions, and said, hey, I completely see you as an SME in this. And I would just love the opportunity to learn from you. And just having that open door and that conversation, it's amazing how much you can grow and learn. So just get in there and keep at it. Joe?
You're good.
Thank you. So I know there's a couple more questions, but unfortunately we're low on time. But I would say, I think everyone here, all the speakers, would welcome your questions by email if you still have questions for us. I believe everyone's email is on their slide, except for mine. So I'll put mine in the chat. And we just have a couple slides here to finish up. Some upcoming events at the partnership. We'll have a webinar on August 17th, more details to follow. So make sure you're getting our email so you see when that comes up. September will be National Food Safety Education Month. October 15th is Global Hand Washing Day. And today is World Food Safety Day. If you didn't know that, happy World Food Safety Day. Next slide. A big thank you to all of our community connectors that help make the work we do possible at the partnership, and to all of our contributing partners who also help make this possible. in honor of World Food Safety Day, if you are able to, we're asking that you make a $10 gift today to help support the free resources, pay it forward for other educators. You could also work with us as a contributing partner, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, or make sure you're signed up for our bi-weekly e-card, or we have 2 other newsletters. Cooking Times gives recipes with food safety, and Lasting Lessons gives K through 12 education information. CEUs. I'm sure a lot of you have questions about CEUs. They are in the chat box now. You can download them. They will also be in a follow-up email after the webinar. You can also download them at fightback.org if you go to free resources and then recorded webinars. If you are seeking NCHEC credits, you need to complete the questionnaire by Monday, August 7th to get those CEUs. And thank you for joining us, everyone. Have a wonderful World Food Safety Day. Thank you, everyone.